Right, Billy. Here we go. Billy, we just pause you. Thanks, mate. You just stop and come this way, Billy.
And Billy.
Bugger off!
And Billy cross.
Here we go. We'll turn round up there.
How does it feel to be working Glasgow? For this freedom of the city, what do you make of that? Thank you, Mark.
Mrs. Connolly, is that possible? It's an old one of my dad's. Thank you. Mrs. Connolly?
God, my flight come in. Go ahead, Jerry.
Can we take a photo together? Thank you very much.
Billy, we're not here for a protocol, but one official photograph of the three of them. Pamela.
I got a picture of three of you. Try and look up the chambers behind you. Yeah, okay, just come forward a little bit, please, folks. Right, up, right, close. Keep it further, Lovely, excellent. Let's see what. Super. Excellent, thank you. Last couple of guys up there. Fantastic.
Right, Ian. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, thanks. Oh, I love Australia myself. Come on in, you guys. No bother. Sparkly shoes and you don't mind. Yeah. Lord Provost.
Ladies and gentlemen, please get standing and receive the Lord Provost
Distinguished honour guests, ladies and gentlemen, could I now invite, please, the main platform party to come to the stage. Thank you. My Lord Dean of Guild, Deacon Convener, Lord Smith, Lord McFarlane, Bailies, Councillors, distinguished and honour guests, ladies and gentlemen. To formally welcome you and introduce tonight's ceremony, would you please welcome the Right Honourable the Lord Provost of the City of Glasgow, Councillor Bob Winter.
Lord McFarlane, Lord Smith, Lord Dean of Guild, Deacon Convener, free men of the city, elected members, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the magnificent surroundings of the City Chambers to celebrate this most auspicious occasion, the award of the Freedom of the City of Glasgow to Billy Connolly. We will conduct this Freedom of the City ceremony beginning with a short prayer from the Very Reverend Dr. David Lunan, the immediate past moderator of the Church of Scotland, and conclude with the national anthem. We will then have dinner, and following a musical interlude, I will propose a civic toast to Billy, to which he will respond. We'll then conclude our evening in true Scottish style with Auld Lang Syne. The details of the Freedom Ceremony are in your programme with a list of the current living holders of the Freedom. I'm extremely pleased that some of them are here this evening and that we have messages of congratulations from others who cannot join us. First of all, our company here tonight. Gathered here tonight is a most distinguished company. We have 4 former Lord Provosts, senior representatives from our universities, our businesses, the Scottish Trade Union Congress, our cultural institutions, the city's senior football team, Scotland's sports institutions, along with Billy Connolly's friends and family, community councillors from the areas of the city where he once lived. Members of our media are present, some as guests, some in a working capacity. What combines us all together is that we're here to honour one of Glasgow's greatest sons. I must, however, ask you to give a special welcome this evening to 2 of our freemen who are present. First, please welcome Jim Watt, who was awarded the Freedom as World Lightweight Boxing Champion in 1981 by my predecessor, Dr. Michael Kelly. Jim. Second, we're also privileged to have here this evening Lord McFarlane of Bearsden, who was awarded the Freedom in 2007 by Lord Provost Liz Cameron for achievements in business, commerce, the arts and charity, including his key role in the refurbishment of Kelvin Grove Art Gallery and Museum. Lord McFarlane. It's now my proud duty to read messages of congratulation which we've received from some of those freemen who cannot be with us tonight. Kenny Dalgleish, who received the Freedom in 1986 from the late Lord Provost Bob Gray, has written, "Dear Billy, I'd like to congratulate you on receiving the Freedom of the City of Glasgow. I'm sure that this recognition means an awful lot to you. It certainly means a lot to me. Like yourself, I'm very proud to have been born and brought up in Glasgow. I'm still looking forward to grazing my sheep in Glasgow Green, still waiting to hang up my washing in George Square. Have a great night. Sorry we can't make it. Kenny's fellow football legend, Sir Alex Ferguson, who was awarded the freedom in 1999 by Lord Provost Alec Mawson, who's also present tonight, has sent the following message. It's a great honour to receive the freedom of the city, and I wish to congratulate Billy on his wonderful achievement. To be given such a prestigious award from your hometown is an absolute privilege, and I wish you a memorable day. Good. Nelson Mandela had the freedom granted under Lord Provost Dr. Michael Kelly in 1981, and Dr. Michael Kelly is present too this evening. But due to this imprisonment, he didn't receive it until 1993, when it was awarded by the late Provost Robert Innes. Understandably, Nelson Mandela cannot be here this evening. However, he's been able to send the following message to myself and to Billy. He writes, as a humble past recipient of the freedom of the City of Glasgow, I continue to feel a strong connection to the people of Glasgow and to your historic city. Glaswegians did so much to support us in our struggle against apartheid, and in 1993, soon after my release from prison, it was my privilege to have the opportunity to visit your freedom-loving part of the world. It was an opportunity to meet in person many of the activists who tirelessly campaigned for an end to one of the most brutal and racist regimes in the world. In Glasgow, I was met with such a warm and heartfelt welcome, I can never forget it. On that most memorable day, I saw that freedom, brotherhood, and justice are the ideals that make up the bedrock of your great city. Today, it is therefore my honour to have the opportunity to convey a message of goodwill to the City of Glasgow as one of your most beloved sons, Billy Connolly, receives the freedom of the city. On this occasion, I wish Mr. Connolly my congratulations at the high honour being bestowed on him today. Welcome, Billy, to a very special club indeed. My warmest wishes also go out to the people of Glasgow with my thanks and deepest appreciation always, Nelson Mandela. In addition to these messages from our freemen, I have one other message that I want to read out, and it's from Sir Michael Parkinson. Michael Parkinson writes, Glasgow should be proud of Billy. The fact is, he is the best at what he does. Apart from being a wonderful comedian, he's also an intelligent and shrewd observer of the way we are. I'm proud to be his friend and to have been just a small part of him achieving his ambition to be forever windswept and interesting. You have done him and the city proud, and that is as it should be. Very sorry I can't be here tonight, but I'm thinking of you and wishing you a wonderful occasion. Thank you. With these messages of celebration fresh in our minds, let's now proceed with the Freedom Ceremony. Following a short prayer, Mr. Drummond will read from the formal document which makes Billy a freeman of the city. Billy and I will both sign the Burgess roll to record his freedom, and I'll present an illuminated scroll and his Burgess ticket to Billy. I'll now hand over to the Very Reverend Dr. David Lunan to begin the ceremony with a prayer. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Lord Provost. Let us pray. Lord God, Father of us all, we praise you for our gathering here tonight to honour Billy Connolly. We thank you for the city we love, for its industry and culture, its learning and caring, its warmth and humour, for the Glasgow that has made us who we are, for the Glasgow that belongs to us. We thank you for all those who in times past and today have enhanced the reputation of our city. We thank you for Billy Connolly, who has shared his gifts freely and brought laughter to us all and laughter to the world, and who has enriched our lives and brought honour to the city. For this we thank you, Lord God, and ask that you be present with us now and always. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would now ask that the Executive Director for Corporate Services for Glasgow City Council, Mr Ian Drummond, conduct the ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you. At Glasgow and within the city chambers there, on this, the 20th day of August, 2010 years, which day the Lord Provost, Bailies and Council of the City of Glasgow, being assembled, did in pursuance of a resolution made at the meeting of the Council held on the 24th day of June, 2010 years, to confer the freedom of the city on Billy Connolly, CBE, admit and receive, and do hereby admit and receive Billy Connolly, CBE, to be a Burgess and Guild Brother of the City of Glasgow, with all rights, privileges and immunities belonging to a Burgess and a Guild Brother of the said city, in recognition of his outstanding contributions in comedy and drama, in consideration of his many charitable works, and in recognition of his pride in being a Glaswegian. Could I now ask the Lord Provost to sign the Burgess roll, please? And could I now ask Billy Connolly to sign the Burgess roll, thereby receiving the freedom of the city? One more thing. Lord Provost, could I ask you to present Billy Connolly with his Burgess ticket and illuminated scroll? Thank you.
I've been eating my porridge for this one, Billy. The big one's back there. Now we end the ceremony in the traditional way. 3 cheers for the youngest Burges. Hip hip! Hip hip! Hip hip! Hooray! And we now end the ceremony, as I indicated before, with the national anthem. Would you all please be upstanding?
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, there will now be a short musical interlude. So to continue with tonight's entertainment, would you please welcome Rob Mayers and Shug O'Rourke.
Good evening, y'all. So, Billy, on behalf of Glasgow's banjo players, I'd like to say thanks very much for keeping this little instrument alive. Shug and I, as underage drinkers, used to attend little sessions in the Scotia Bar way back, where we would hear Billy and his good friend Josh McGovern playing all a lovely banjo music, but naturally because it started on the road to ruin. And I'd like to give you just a couple of examples of the kind of music that Billy played way back then. So the first of these is one that Billy used for his work tour of Scotland. This was written about 19 years ago by Joe Martin. It's called Banjo Man. All right, I mean, we do have a programme here, but we're perfectly willing to ditch this if Billy fancies getting up and playing a couple of numbers with us. Yeah? Okay, so change the programme.
Sorry about this. I'm going to play. Smacked me in the mouth with a microphone. I'm going to do a wee song called The Cuckoo, which I've been playing for 1,000 years. And 1, 2, 3, that'll do me. They don't want to hear too much anyway. This is just a wee bit of mountain music because it's good for you. This is really nice of me. They used to be really rude to me, especially this little bastard here. He had the nicest hair you ever saw. It was long, frizzy hair, like mine. And mine was like kind of like it is now. But I got a perm. I wanted bigger hair like his. I wanted it to stick out. And I got somebody told me if you got a perm called a twink, a tweeny twink, and you did it wrong, if you took it out early, if you took it out early, and it was wrong, it would stick up like an afro. And it did, but it fell on its side. It sort of listed to starboard, and I had to cut it to get it balanced. And that night I had a concert in Paisley Town Hall, and he was there, that little bastard. He said in front of the audience, "What the fuck have you done with your head?" So I told him I dropped it with HP sauce and stuck my finger in the electric socket. No, this is it. Pretty bird, and she warbles as she flies. She don't never haul a cuckoo till the 4th day of July. Gonna build me log cabin on a mountain so high, so as I can see Willie as he goes riding by. Oh, the cuckoo, she's a pretty bird, and I wish that she was mine. She'd never drink water, she'd only drink wine.
Not bad, Billy. Remember the words and everything. So we've radically altered the programme, as I said. We're going to finish off with a flat Scruggs number. This is one that Billy taught us way back. Flag away the breakdown. Okay. Direction. Thank you, folks. I'm going to go off.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm one of that generation who first saw Billy perform as musician with the Humblebums. And of course, as we saw tonight, he retains a love and a competence in playing the banjo to this day. And it was in this connection, I'm delighted to announce this evening that Billy has agreed to join Stéphane Deneuve and Craig Armstrong by becoming the third UNESCO City of Music Ambassador. Thank you very much for that, Billy. Thank you. What an ambassador. Informally, I can also reveal that another of our guests this evening has also agreed to be a City of Music Ambassador. It will be announced officially in September. Alex Kapranos of Franz Ferdinand. Alex, could you stand up, please? Billy's fame, however, is built upon his unique contribution to comedy. He has expanded the scope of comedy and has internationalised Glasgow's special brand of humour through his great talent. Billy's style is based on acute observation, an uncanny ability to highlight the absurdity of everyday situations. His comedy reflects what he observed growing up in the streets of Anderson, Partick and Drumchapel, where he lived, in Govan, where he had his secondary education, and at his workplace in Alexander Stevens Shipyard in Linthouse. In the years BC, before Connolly, or even BBC, before Billy Connolly, observational comedy was an extreme rarity. In his wake has become the preferred mode of many stand-up comedians. But as Billy will be the first to acknowledge, his brand of humour did not only come from inside his own creative head, it was also nurtured on the very fertile soil of Glasgow. It was said as I was growing up that you could find more humour at any Glasgow street corner or pub than you could on the stage or television. Little wonder then that Glasgow was notoriously hard on comedians. In fact, the Glasgow Empire, as some of you remember, became widely known as the comics graveyard. However, the other side of that coin was that if a comedian could survive in Glasgow, it was a sign of real talent. And if you had it, this city embraced you. In 1952, Glasgow boys Stan Laurel and his American pal Oliver Hardy were carried shoulder high in triumph down Sauchiehall Street after going down a storm at the Empire. Those of our homegrown talent who survived the ordeal were excellent too. For example, we produced the great Stanley Baxter, the incomparable Ricky Fulton, Billy's good friend Jimmy Logan, and of course that great deadpan absurdist Chick Murray. All were wonderful Scottish comedians with a great reputation across Scotland and across the United Kingdom. It was Billy Connolly, however, who became a great international Scottish comedian, playing to packed audiences in the biggest and most iconic venues in the English-speaking world, from the London Palladium to the Sydney Opera House. I believe his success stems from his ability to tap into our common humanity, to shine a light on experiences that we all share, but are often too inhibited to talk about. His humour captures both Scotland's rugged individualism and our strong sense of community. For me, Billy's humour reminds people around the whole of the globe that we are all Jock Tamson's bairns. And in this sense, his humour follows in the footsteps of the international appeal of our national bard. A man's a man for all that. Auld Lang Syne. Billy's comedy can be satirical, absurd, scatological, and yes, of course, irreverent. But above all, it's real and live. And it makes us laugh until we ache, even if we don't want to. So Billy Connolly's emergence, to me, was not just a career breakthrough for him, but it was also an elevation of Glasgow's popular humour onto the national and international stage. I well remember, as many of you here will, Billy's first famous interview on the Michael Parkinson Show and the electrifying impact it had. Billy has also applied his wide-ranging talents to straight acting. On television, he's played sometimes complex characters well beyond his own persona. And who can forget the wonderful film Mrs. Brown, made in 1997, which saw Billy star alongside Dame Judi Dench, Anthony Sher, and Geoffrey Palmer. Billy's performance as a royal retainer with an intriguing relationship with Queen Victoria captures John Brown's essential humanity, his empathy, his strength, and his vulnerability. And his performance is one of the reasons the film has maintained its appeal and is repeated so frequently on television. Billy has long been generous to good causes, starting with the Secret Policeman's Ball to raise money and awareness for Amnesty International. He's also been a regular in comic relief, with appearances ranging from reuniting children with their parents in Mozambique to capering naked around Piccadilly. Yes, indeed, there is apparently nothing that Billy Connolly will not do for a good cause. Much closer to home, Billy's been a long-term supporter of the East Park School and the Prince and Princess of Wales Hospice. When asked by former Lord Provost Alec Mawson in 2002 if he could help people whose homes and possessions had been damaged by the East End floods, he responded in his typically generous way by staging a number of benefit performances. The considerable public record of Billy's charitable work alone cannot convey the full extent of his generosity. He makes many private contributions to good causes and to individuals in need. The quality which unifies Billy Connolly's many facets and talents is that he is a Glaswegian through and through. I heard him say today that he didn't want to be totally identified always with where he was born, but whenever he opened his mouth, everyone said to him from Glasgow, not Scotland, Glasgow, and he could be 10,000 miles away, and people would spot that. So the freedom that Billy's been awarded is for his pride in being a Glaswegian, and of course it reflects our immense pride in him, which was so clear in the reception he's received here this evening. Yesterday, Billy delivered a humorous, insightful, and emotional address about his departed friend, the late, great Jimmy Reid. I don't doubt that Jimmy would have loved it. For me, it was wonderful to hear Billy's contribution, full of pride in his memories of Glasgow and its people on such an occasion. Some may say that Billy has on occasion expressed his pride in Glasgow in sometimes ambiguous ways. He certainly has a warts and all appreciation, and of course, the ability to laugh at ourselves has always been in the best traditions of Glasgow humour. Speaking personally, I love it, and so I believe do the great majority of our citizens. I'm sure that we were all moved by the messages of support and congratulations which I read earlier, in particular that from Nelson Mandela. Please permit me to repeat his statement that as a Freeman of the City of Glasgow, he belongs to a very special club. Billy Connolly now deservedly has joined that distinguished membership. I now invite you all to charge your glasses and be upstanding to toast the newest member of that club. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in a toast to Billy Connolly. Thank you.
Please keep going till I get there. Ladies and gentlemen, Lord Provost, Lady Provost, all sorts of flash dignitaries, Dr. Lunan especially, this is hard for you. To be the moderator and watch me coming up on the stage must make your heart skip a wee beat. You know, when I met Dr. Lunan, I was going to say backstage, well, in that other wee room, I said to him, he's a nice man, yeah, and a good man. You can tell very quickly he's a nice and a good man. That I said, do you know that? Because sometimes, as the Provost said, I can be very ambiguous. And I was being ambiguous at this point. And I said to Dr. Lunan, you know that place where you have the General Assembly up on the mound in Edinburgh? And he said, yes. I said, well, you know that big statue of John Knox? And John Knox is like this. And I said, do you know, I've got a burning ambition to creep up in the middle of the night and put a yo-yo in his hand. And it's just something that has driven me for years. And the nice man smiled. Now, if he was Pastor Jack Glass, he'd have driven a stake through my heart. Whenever I miss Jack Glass, I reload and fire again. I'm not going to detain you very long because it's... No, I'm not. And I've just got one wee bit of paper because this is an extraordinary night in my life. An extraordinary night. When I'm immensely proud to be a Glaswegian. I always have. And oh God, I'm going to greet again. Christ, stop it. Come on, get a grip of yourself. I've never hidden my love for this city. And And I've always said to people, because Americans always say to me, isn't Edinburgh beautiful? And I say, yeah, it's full of beautiful dead things. You want beautiful live things? Glasgow's a place. What can you say about a town with a castle on one side of the street and Woolworths on the other? But there's a few. This is very hard for me. There's so many people in here that I love. And I mean, I'm not saying that the people that I like, people that I love, and I've loved for years and years and years. And Neil Lennon spoke to me. I'm floating on air. I don't care what you think. Neil Lennon spoke to me and we cuffed those bastards last night. Oh, sorry, did that slip out? I've had Rangers supporters trying to look kindly to me all day. Oh, you did well, you bastard. There's Andy Cameron trying to look tolerant. You wee hun. I love you, Cameron, and you know that. I must tell you something about that. Derek Johnson, who's in here. Where's Derek? Derek is one of my favourite people in the world. Many, many years ago, too many for comfort, I met Derek. He came to see me with his pal Charlie in the Caird Hall in Dundee, which is a sort of tunnel with seats. And he's a lovely man, and it was the middle of the winter, and all the football had been snowed off, and he said, do you fancy going to see St Johnson? And I've never fancied going to see St Johnson. I wouldn't go to see St Johnson. I wouldn't open the curtains if they were playing outside my kitchen window. But they were... Does anybody wake up and go, I think I'll go and see St Johnson? They don't even have a good song. Give me a Saint, give me a J, give me an O and an H and an N. Well, some people pretend to be St Johnson supporters, but they're really Rangers supporters. They're like Chick Young, the St Mirren supporter. Couldn't he find Love Street in a taxi? No. What am I doing? How didn't they come up? I thought I joined the Masons tonight. They made me a hammer man. I don't even know what that is. I might have joined the Masons, but they never asked me to take my shoes off. I think I'm okay just now. I didn't have to bare my tit. Now, if you're a Freemason, that's cool with me. You know what? I don't have anything. I don't have a problem with it. Oh, here, I better finish the thing about Derek Johnson. Derek says there's a good game on tomorrow. Lying bastard. St Johnson and Hibs in Perth. And we were talking on the Friday night. So Saturday we drove down to this windswept Muirton, or whatever it was called, that park. Whoosh. There was about 60 people there. It was a crap game. There was snow everywhere. The players looked miserable. Those people trying to get sent off, butting the referee and all that. Trying to get in. Kicking the police as they ran past, you know. This is a complete lie. There was quite a lot of people there, including Fish. Remember Big Fish from Marillion? I met him years later, and he said, I saw you at a football match. And I said, oh really? Well, hoping it would be like Barcelona or something. St Johnson hymns. Oh, shit, don't tell anybody I was there. Well, this actually happened. Derek and me were standing at the dugout, him having a bit of pull with these kind of people, got us this position above the dugout where the players ran out, and we said it was brick and stuff, concrete thing. The game was semi-decent. We were leaning on this, and this Egypt, I don't know what he had done. He was at one of the crowd. I don't even know which of the teams he supported, but he was being led out by I don't know if anybody still uses the word Oxter. But I remember my sister and I used to laugh at the expression, he was Oxtered from the premises. You know that? You know, a bouncer on each side as he was duly Oxtered out of the room. The other thing I love is this guy was being Oxtered, but it was a kind of complex Oxter movement. You know, where you get your left hand under the right Oxter. No. Left. You put your left hand under his left Oxter and your right hand on his wrist, which you live. So he's like a wheelbarrow. So he's been Oxtered from the game, from the end. Whatever, probably St Johnson. He had a miserable look about him. And he's on his tiptoes. You know that thing the police do when they lift you slightly high off the ground? So you've got no purchase. Much as you would like to header one of them. And he's, well, I'm sorry, Derek. I should have warned you. You should have bloody known. Oh, that shite you're talking Radio Clyde anyway. You should be used to this. So, he's a bigot. He's a terrible bigot. They're all bigots. I'm a paranoid. He's been led. This prick has been. Sorry, Dr. Lunan. He's been led past the dugout like a wheelbarrow on his tiptoes like that. And he turns around and he spots me and Derek, this balloon. And he says to the police, look, there's Derek Johnson and Billy Connolly. Shut the fuck up. Oh. Oh. Is there anybody? There's Alec Mawson. We used to try and electrocute people. He probably doesn't want you to know this. Alec Mawson was a plater in the Clyde. Were you a plater or a carpenter? Plater. We were apprentices, and I was a welder, and there's Ewan McMillan. He was an apprentice along with me. He was the best welder I ever saw. But this in the Clyde, you know. But that's just for yourself. I'm not kidding. You were crap. But hey, Alec and I, he was a madman. Now I know he used to be the provost of the town. But the first time I spoke, the people say, why are you a comedian? You're forced into it in Glasgow. You know you are. It's like, do you remember that lovely Jewish comedian, Arnold Brown? He what a smashing comedian. He said the finest thing about Glasgow. He said, my father was teetotal in Glasgow. He said it was terrible on a Friday night watching him being thrown into pubs. And when you come from a town where people say that, you know what I mean? There was an actual court case here, you know. I would be in my 20s or 30s. I was younger. And like you didn't notice I was younger. No, Bill, you're still in your 20s. I know. Shh. But somebody had been kneeling on somebody else in one of those awful estates, you know, the Easter House or some Castlemilk or some place, Drumchapel, and one of those windswept fucking great ideas that were born in here. And thanks a lot, lads. We live in the steppes. Oh, hey, 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 hey. It was like a graveyard with windies. But this guy had been set about by another guy, and who was hitting him, who was kneeling him on his chest and hitting him with a hammer about the head and shoulders. And a wee woman was given evidence. This is the truth. This isn't a joke. This happened. You're forced into comedy in this town. This woman was given evidence. A wee Bud Neal, a wee fat kind of woman. You know these wee, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. You know those wee Glasgow women? Wee fat women. Wee women with slow metabolisms. She might be wee, but she might be. She might be wee, but she's big boned. She might have a slow metabolism, but her appetite's got some fucking acceleration. No, please. Oh, Alec Mawson. When I met Alec Mawson, we were both apprentices. We were working on a ship of some kind. And the deck was up. You know, the superstructure, not the superstructure, the shell was up, and the deck was on. And the forecastle and the bridge, the forecastle was done, the bridge was there. There were the makings of it. And there was portholes burnt out along the rusting metal of what would be the front of the bridge. And somebody, not a million miles from here, had drawn a bus on it. And the portholes were the windows of the bus. And that very person was driving the fucking bus. There was a heat at the porthole that was him. I was immediately attracted to him. How you doing, man? Oh, go on the bus and shut your face. Well, we became very pally. We were working there. But a game developed between us, and it was his idea. The entire thing is your fault. I take no blame. Normally, I'm a nice man. I would share the blame. It was you. He says, it was pelting rain, and I was pulling my gear along the deck. I was a welder. I was pulling my cable and everything. I had all my rods hanging like this, pulling my stuff along. There was a huge puddle at the top of the gangway. And he says, get your gear over here. I said, what is it? And he had a big bit of metal, like a shepherd's crook. Just, that kind of, like a pole, like a scout's pole. Remember when scouts had poles? And he says, go down that manhole there and come along the stage and underneath. So I had to go down a manhole and along under the deck till I was directly under the puddle with my welding equipment. He said, when I give you 2 knocks with this pole, you stick your rod up like that on the deck. But I didn't know he was doing it when somebody was walking through the puddle. He was standing there next to his fucking bus. So I would go, and the guy would go, ah! We could have killed people. And of course, once I had done it, it was his turn underneath and me with the pole. That was... I would like to take this opportunity as well, this God-sent opportunity, to, where are you, Michael, to apologize to my brother Mike. Michael, I had forgotten. I had completely forgotten until you came and visited me up in Aberdeenshire, and I got the malt whiskey out, because I live near Tom and Towel, and they make some seriously good whiskey up there. And I'm a non-drinker, and like most non-drinkers, I buy the best and shovel it into my friends, just to watch them disintegrate before my eyes and feel smug. But Michael was loving this, and in the middle, he'd had 4 or 5 of these large ones, and he was sitting in my wee billiard room place, and he said, "You bastard," as people will when they have a few of these whiskies down them in Scotland. "You bastard." That noise that has made all these weddings disintegrate in Scotland. You know these weddings that start with the two fathers going, "Do you take a wee drink yourself?" Oh, just to be sociable. 10 minutes later, their hair's wet. And funerals, "You bastard. Ah, you never said that when he was alive, you bastard." Well, Michael was getting to that stage. And I said, "What's up with you?" He said, "You bastard." And when he told me, it was the truth. And I thought about it today, this very day. I drove past the exact place. And Michael, I'm sorry. I apologize. Because what happened, Michael is 6 years younger than me. And so, my Auntie Mona, Michael's mother, would say, "Take Michael out with you." I said, "Oh, fuck, you know, I'd be 12 and he was 6. I'm going out with my pals. Take Michael with you." Oh, fuck. Sorry, Dr. Luna. "Oh, fizz," I used to say. "Oh, fizz and gobstoppers." And it doesn't work, does it? I used to say, "Oh, fuck." But what I used to do was I would take him along to the Kelvin Grove, where the Kelvin Grove and the Western Infirmary meet. You know those 2 gates? Well, there used to be a public telephone box there. The door was sticky. And I would put him in and shut the door and piss off and play for 2 or 3 hours and pick him up on the road home. Michael, I'm sorry. Shut up or I'll belt you one. Jim Watt's in here, and me and Jim are fellow Masons now. Enamel Basins, me and Jim, we're going to meet and do weird handshakes and whisper a lot. Oh, I must tell you, my cousin Eddie's here as well. He's over there. And he once found a book on Freemasonry. in the library or somewhere, or some second-hand shop, and we laughed. We laughed. You know my background, I don't need to tell you. It was about being initiated into described the initiation into Masonic rites. And you have to, in the book, according to this book, God knows who wrote it, you had to bare your breast and roll up the leg of your trousers. And by this time we were pissing ourselves laughing. And be blindfolded and have your arms behind you. And and the guys in charge of your initiation take you up to a door, and one of them knocks the door with a stick, and a voice from the other side says, "Who's that?" or whatever. And you say, "An initiate," or whatever the proper language is. And they go, "Enter," and the door opens. And this poor guy is blindfolded, and his trousers up and his tits hanging out, is led forward until he walks into a dagger which is being held out by a guy in the room. So he walks into it, and of course he stops. And the guy holding the dagger says, "What do you feel?" And his answer in the book, "A prick." I never finished the wee fat woman, did I? Aye, she was given evidence. There was a man kneeling. I'm sorry, it's the way my brain works. I've tried to change it over the years. And so, incidentally, were any of you at Jimmy's funeral yesterday? Well, I've never finished a story there either, remember? Remember I said, I learned to do that. In Govan, I was talking about Govan, and I said, I learned many things in Govan, and I went over a few of them, but one of the things I learned was to do that from time to time. And the reason was, my cousin John and I, Eddie's brother, who's now sadly no longer with us, one of the funniest men I ever had the privilege of meeting, he showed me a trick that this is so Glasgow, the outcome of this. But the trick was, he said he'd learned it from a book about stuntmen. And you whack somebody with a flat hand on the kisser, right here. But you stop when you get to the face, of course. And the person, the slappee, claps here. So you go, and he goes, "Oh, you bastard!" Or "Oh, you blooming jings bism!" Right, whatever language is appropriate. Well, John and I became quite expert at this. And we had come out of the subway at Govan Cross, and we were going along, and there's a cinema called I think it was called the Plaza. We were under the marquee of the Plaza, and he went, "Let's do it." And I said, "Okay, right, me first." And this is where I learned you should do that. I went, "Ya bastard!" And I had a real swing at John, and he went, "Oh!" And I felt the most awful pain on the right side of my head as a woman who was a complete stranger walking past nearly took my head off with an umbrella. "Ya bastard! Hitting that boy!" Oh, the wee woman. She was given evidence about this man being hit on the head with a hammer. And she had shouted at this person. The judge said, "I believe the man ceased hitting the other man with the hammer when you shouted, Mrs. McBumforty, or whatever her name was. And she says, aye, stop hitting the man. And he says, and this is all written down verbatim. You can check it out in the Mitchell Library, or you can Google it. Everybody Googles. I think Google's a Scottish guy. I think it's a guy called Google McDougall, who lives in Stornoway with a big pile of books. And when you phone up, he goes, fucking right. He says, so you shouted and the man stopped hitting the other man with a hammer. She says, aye, stopped, all right. And her words to that effect. He says, what did you shout? And this is her exact answer. She says, I just shouted, hey, you're taking liberties with that man's head. Some of the funniest people I've ever met in my life come from this town. Some of them I knew, some of them I didn't. One of them, I was coming out of Hampden, and Scotland had just beaten England. In those glorious days when we used to play England, I wish they would start it again. But it was lovely in those days, and we had just cuffed them at Hampden, and I came out, and there was a man, and he was drunk, and there was some cars parked against Hampden, the old Hampden, some cars, and one of them's a Rolls Royce, and this guy had a hold of the spirit of ecstasy on top of the radiator. This drunk bent over like a half-shut knife, and he's singing Flower of Scotland to the thing on top of the radio. Oh, Flower of Scotland. And I said, you all right, pal? And I'll never forget his answer. He says, there's only one way to beat the English, son, and that's twice. I don't know if he'd worked it out or not, or if it just happened. Like the drunk guy who says to me, I've been drunk for 3 days. Yesterday, the day, and tomorrow. Jim Watt, I haven't forgotten you. He was on This Is Your Life, and they asked him in the days with Big Eamon. Andrews was still doing it in those days because he was still alive then. And Eamon Andrews suffered from a weird disorder, the inability to hide behind anything. Do you ever remember that? Well, here he comes now. I'll just hide behind this bus. And people would come out and go, hi, Eamon, how you doing? Oh, Jesus, I'm caught again. However, I don't know what that disorder's called, uncover-up ability or something. But however, when it was Jim's rightful time to be on This Is Your Life, and how richly he deserved it, they asked me to go along and be one of the guests. But I didn't know Jim Watt. I said, I don't know the fellow. I said, I'm a huge admirer. I said, and I did shout at him once. He probably won't remember. But he was being interviewed outside a car showroom. And I shouted, up your bum, or something really witty, because I'm good with the witticisms from time to time. Up your arse! Or I can't remember what I shouted, and they kind of went like that and spoiled the interview. So he said, that'll do. Okay. And I went down, and it went brilliantly. Was it Phil? Wasn't it Phil Oz? Who was that great blues player that was on? Dave Van Ronk. Dave Van Ronk was one of the guests. I mean, I idolised him. It's stunning. I'll never forget that night. Backstage, I said to Dave Van Ronk, "What are you doing now?" He said, "Nothing much, man." Great blues player. "Nothing much, but I got a new album coming out, and it's real good." He said, "But this time next year we'll be farting through silk." But you don't know this, Jimmy. This is a fact. John Conte was there, was one of the guests. Remember John, beautiful, from Liverpool, moustache, looked like Omar Sharif. Well, his best days were behind him, John, and it was quite a sad affair. He was hitting the bevy, and it was a bit obstreperous, you know. And there's nothing worse than a drunk boxer, you know, if you can, you know, just flinging his weight about, and not sure where he is. No, shut up. And Eamon Andrews says, big unhideable Andrews, he came out of hiding for a minute from behind this row of buildings. "I was just hiding there, Bill." He says, I'm going to, this is nothing much, but it still turns my blood cold. He says, and if you ever get a chance to see this on DVD or anything, you'll see that I'm telling the truth. I'm sitting beside John Conte. He says, "I'm going to stick you beside John Conte." And I said, why me? Because backstage Conte's going, these flies open and he's stoating about like a bendy toy. He says, "You're fit for him." I said, "I'm fine, what?" He says, "If he gives you any trouble, just give him a dig in the ribs." And John Conte would have knocked my fucking head off. But listen, this town has been very, very good and very, very kind to me. And I started my career here in the most ridiculous way. I saw Pete Seeger on television on a folk program called Alex a While with Rory and Alex McEwen, who are now dead, sadly. And a guest was Pete Seeger playing the banjo, and I said, "I'm going to get one of them." And I got one at the Barrows for £2.50, an old zither banjo. I didn't know how to play it. And I went to, at those days, there was an information box in George Square, a wee office, one of those porter cabin type offices, where people usually ask where to get the bus for Oban or Fort William. And I joined the queue with my banjo. And there was a very nice woman serving. I said, "Where can I learn to play the banjo?" And she looked at me as if I'd just said, "Where can I interfere with some wains?" Oh, God, why did you need to say that? You always let the side down, just when it matters. I could have told my other George Square story. About being on the last bus to Drumchapel. And a lot of people used to be sick on that bus. The last bus to Drumchapel. If you come on with a fish supper, you could have been eaten alive. That smell. Ooh, fish supper. I'll never forget, it's one of the funniest Glasgow scenes I've ever heard. There was a guy, when the bus went up hills, all the vomit would come down and slide down. You have to lift your feet as this tsunami of diced carrots would come flying past. And then it would straighten out and you could all relax a bit. Oh, forget what I'm talking about. Oh, aye. There was a guy being sick in front of me, and he was doing one of those ones where you think his tongue's going to come out of his throat. You know, one of those. But while he was doing it, he was hanging on. He thought he was hanging on to the seat in front of him, but he wasn't. He was hanging on to the hood of a duffel coat of the guy in the seat in front of him. So every time he went, the hood would come down. The hood would come down and the guy would go. Oh, Jesus Christ. You can just imagine his hood filling up with vomit, you know. I love this town. This town makes me laugh. It just, when people shout things at football matches, like, I've seen a better turn at the eye infirmary. I want to just own up that I'm a welder and they're the real comedians. And and it's changed so much over the years, and it's changed for the better. And it's in like everything good, it's in a constant state of change. And some of it takes my breath away. And I remember I was making a film here, and there was a wee dresser called Robert on it. And he was describing somewhere in Glasgow, where in Glassford Street or Stockwell Street, and he says, you know, down there next to the gay village. I said, the fucking what? The gay village. What are you talking about? It's Glasgow. Aye, the gay village. And Robert turned out to be the funniest of men. I spent many a happy hour. And then, if you would just cover your ears, Dr. Lunan, I was talking to him. I said, have you ever heard of those stories about Jesus being gay? Because I spent a few years reading comparative religion. I read all over the world. I was on a world tour. I read everything I could get, and this was one of the things I read. And he says, oh, really? I said, aye. There's a theory. And I said, if you look at the Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, you know in the Da Vinci Code, the person they pick out as being a woman, is it? Well, some people don't think it's a woman. Some people think it's a guy who is very feminine. And he was James, who owned the house that the Last Supper took place in. And I said, there was a name for him, the something James, the beautiful James, the and Robert says, Jesse James. And I thought, oh, I'm glad I belong to Glasgow. And a dear friend of mine called Peter Ferguson, who's very, very ill at the moment, and he's one of my favourite people on the planet. Oh God, I'm going to greet again. Come on, get yourself together. He used to be the barman at the Western Baths, and I used to love going in there, and he made me howl with laughter. Howl, and sliding, hanging onto the bar with my elbows, with my knees not working, kind of laughing. And I went in one night and he said, Billy, and I said, aye. He said, you know I like you, don't you? And I said, of course I do, Peter. He said, I like you very much. I said, I'm glad to hear that. I like you very much. He said, but recently, he said, my admiration for you has soared. I said, oh really, what brought this on? He says, not just you and all the others, all the actors and stage people. I said, and what was this? He said, we did a play in here. I said, what, in here? Who? He said, the members. We put on a play, and it was Forget Me Not. What they had done was made up. Hi, Billy. They'd written a play round the poem by McGonagall, Forget Me Not, and it's the worst piece of shit you could ever read about why the flower Forget Me Not got its name. And in the story, there's a goodly knight riding along on his horse, and he comes to a river, and he sees a beautiful damsel on the other side of the river, just swanning about, lying there. And I said, hello, beautiful damsel, or words to that effect. And she says, oh, hello. And he obviously thinks, what can I do now? So he sees a wee flower, and he picks it and threw it to her. But he didn't fling it far enough, and it only went to the middle of the river, and it shot down the river. And she went, oh, that's the flower sunk now. That's the flower away. That's me not getting a flower now, eh? And that's me flowerless, you bastard. He said, fear not, fair damsel, I'll get a flower for you. And he leapt into the river, in a suit of armour, of course, and plunged to the bottom like a stone. Managed to swim up to the surface, grabs the flower, and says, here you are, darling, forget me not. And flings it, and she says, well, thanks. And he sank to the bottom and died. And that's pretty much the play, because that's what the poem is. And I said, but where does all the admiration come from? He says, well, that's what I was going to tell you. He said, my admiration for the way you people can control your nerves. He said, because I was playing the damsel. He said, I was the fair damsel. He says, I was behind that curtain between the bar and the lounge. The play was in the lounge. And he was... yeah, I can just see him. He says, I was behind the curtain. He says, I was shaking like a fucking leaf. I was shiting myself. He says, and I couldn't take it anymore. It was my turn was coming, and I just had to go for it. And I dashed behind the bar and made myself a large Malibu and pineapple. Now, anybody in the world would have had a brandy like that. I feel a wee bit bad. Not a big bit bad. I feel a wee bit bad about... Oh, by the way, Tam Doak is in here. There he is over there. Tam Doak and I used to go around in motorcycles and have a laugh, and then we joined the parachute regiment and had a laugh in there as well. He did very well. I didn't. I buggered off and became a hairy banjo player. But when I looked at Tam's invitation, I was writing out the names because, and I want you to know that most of you in here, some of you I don't know, But the vast majority, I love you. You're here because I love you. And Tam is a very important part of my life. But I remember when I thought you might like a story we used to tell in the parachute regiment, when the new guy says to the sergeant, "Sergeant, what happens if my parachute doesn't open?" And the sergeant says, "Son, it's very, very easy. You have an emergency parachute on the front there. If the parachute on your back doesn't deploy, pull the red handle, and the emergency chute will immediately deploy before your very eyes. Woof, and you'll be fine." He says, "Well, what if it doesn't?" He says, "Well, that's very, very easy. If it doesn't deploy and the whole thing comes out like a wet hanky, what you do is you shout at the top of your voice, 'Allah, Allah, help me.'" The boy says, "But I'm a Christian." He says, "It doesn't matter. It's a non-fail. Allah, Allah, help me." Fair enough. So they go up in the aeroplane, the boy jumps out, parachute, nothing. So he pulls his emergency, nothing. And he goes, "Allah, Allah, help me." And a big black hand comes out the sky and gently cradles him and places him on the ground. And he says, "Oh, thank Christ for that." And a big black foot goes. Thanks for making me a freeman and giving me the freedom of the city. I'm entitled to all sorts of things, grazing sheep in the Glasgow Green and marching coos over the Squinty Bridge. And my favourite one is they do me a really big favour. I have to defend Glasgow when it's under attack. I've done that all my life. Anytime you like. But if I go to jail, I'm entitled to a cell of my own. Ooh, I feel lucky. I feel so lucky. Thank you very, very much, Glasgow, and thank you, all my pals, for being here. Thanks for making it such an extraordinary, memorable night for me. I love you, and I'll never forget this. Thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, pray silence for the Lord Provost, who will give tonight's vote of thanks.
Thank you.
What can I say? How do you follow Billy Connolly? I just won't go there. But when we did discuss the date for this award, we agreed that it would be a Friday night. And a real Glasgow Friday night it's turned out to be. I want to give thanks to the musicians and the performers, Pure Bass, the Hamish Napier Quintet, and Rob Mayers and Sugar Root, with the performance by Billy Connolly. We must thank the serving staff of Cordia, Creative Catering with Jenny McIntyre running the floor and keeping everything in order. Thought the meal was very good tonight. The chefs have gone home, but let's give them a round of applause anyway. Thanks are also due to the management and staff of this building for all they've done in the preparation of the building and dealing with us in our way in. And of course, I would like to thank Billy for his wonderful reply to the toast, to thank him and Pamela and their family members for their wonderful company and the great guests, the 50 guests that they brought among us here this evening. Thank you. And Pamela, in acknowledgement of your role and everything you've done in your own life and the role you play in Billy's life and the way you've written so skillfully about him, Our Lady Provost would like to give you a token from the city, a lovely bouquet of flowers. Finally, thanks to you all for turning up here and making it such a wonderful evening, and for showing your appreciation of Glasgow's, I love this phrase, youngest Burgess, Billy Connolly. So, safe journey home, everyone. Very last word of thanks is to say you raised over £2,000 with that collection we had for Pakistan relief. Thank you for that. And finally, let's all stand together in a traditional ending, Auld Lang Syne. Who's going to play it?